I'm an overthinker. I always have been. I plan out my conversations before and after they happen, make sure I always know what my next step is, or the next 50, and lay down every night trying to solve every problem in the world before I can finally relax enough to fall asleep. So yeah, I'm an overthinker, an overplanner, an overanalyzer. And I wanted to try to step away from that. Wanted to see what happened if I took away the chance to think. So, I threw a dart at a map. Now, it was only a map of my quaint little state of Maryland, but I had to start somewhere. I've spent almost all my life here in the Old Lion State, but it wasn't until recently that I learned just how much there is here. I've heard it called America in miniature, but I never really saw it like that. I found myself happy where I was, the well-to-do suburbs of Howard County, where I comfortably spent my childhood playing with the neighborhood kids until dinner every night, taking trips to Ocean City in the summers, and visiting Baltimore when the weather was nice. But I wanted to explore the place I thought I called home in a new kind of way. I wanted to know what chance would lead me to find in Maryland, and I didn't want to think about a thing. So I threw a dart at a map. And another. And another. It was a small little town, Roarsville, with not too much more than some houses, a church or two, and a post office. Oh, and a shiny new rustic chic vineyard right outside the main town. Roarsville feels like two conflicting places being forced to coexist. One where everyone stays quiet and slow and gentle, where neighbors know each other but outsiders can't find a way in, and another that's young and commercial and homegrown in a manufactured kind of way, where everything is authentic but still technical and planned. The business side of Roarsville is like a production, but the heart of the town feels like backstage long after the show is over, only a few people milling about and everything's a little out of place. But the town center is cohesive in its own kind of way, some opportunities for community, and everything kind of matches, from the flags outside to the state of the homes. Everything needs a little touch-up, the paint on the houses, sidewalks, the decorations sitting outside, but everything seems the same age, like a place frozen in time. It's like everyone agreed to let things fall apart, together, just a little bit, so at least it all looks like it's meant to be there. Everything has its place, but in an organic way, as opposed to the rustic aesthetic the vineyard put together, where everything new is distressed to look old. The town center instead just lets time do the work, slowly chipping away at the perfection that once was to create a place uniquely lived in and seemingly well loved. Ingleside was, in a word, quaint. Not a soul in sight, but evidence of soul all around. Rustic with a bit of flair, an isolated place that I could only hope had a little more heart than it seemed to have. The town was just a collection of houses ranging in size, style, and age, like the bits and pieces in a one-of-a-kind knick-knack shop. It sits in the middle of an agricultural area and seems teeming with life compared to the emptiness surrounding it. Like most towns, it had a church at the center and a post office nearby, but there wasn't much else in the way of activity. The only thing I learned about this place was that Amelia Earhart passed through once, asking for directions. Now, how she found anyone to ask is beyond me, but I digress. The only thing that made Ingleside seem like a town and not just a residential street was the community center, beaten down, or well-loved, as it was. But it was a sweet little place, more character than a season of SVU, and seemingly nothing to hide. But there was something sort of imperfect, evidence of a sense of humor, a little personality that doesn't quite come off so clear, but that seems like you might see it if you really got to know the place. Almost like a secret, a little something extra for those who love this town. I left feeling a little empty, hoping there was something more to this place that I couldn't see. I feel like there's something I missed. Compared to the places I visited before it, Prince Frederick seemed manufactured. It felt like a town with a mission, strategically placed businesses to maximize efficiency, and not much else. There were little bits of something greater, something more unified, something people loved instead of what they needed to pay the bills. But it was mainly law firms and courthouses and day spas and auto repair shops, businesses that, although necessary, are almost anonymous. So generic in form, something that seems like they could have been pulled from anywhere else and have fit in just the same. Outside the courthouse, which takes up the attention on Main Street, a collection of bricks stopped me in my tracks. Somehow, there were so many people who cared about this place, enough to have themselves or their loved ones memorialized there. But why? There's nothing outwardly unified about this place, just people passing through, some stop to shop or eat, and some houses scattered about. But there was something so connected too, like this place was planned to be the way it was, efficient and practical. How it became so cherished is something I couldn't find out. But there's gotta be something more, something I missed, something I may never get to understand that made this dot on a map mean so much to so many. With these towns and these experiences in my back pocket, I went home, to the town I grew up in and have grown to love, with the lawn I ate lunch on a field trip when I was 9, the steps of the Welcome Center I took homecoming pictures on, the restaurant where I met with my best friend on the day before I left for college. This town holds pieces of my history with it, and I carry bits and pieces of it with me too. Recently, I met up with a friend for coffee in my town at a coffee shop I've been to a million times where I can't go without seeing at least one person I know. I parked my car next to the wine shop at the top of the street and began to walk, and as I glanced in the window as I passed by, I could almost hear the gentle hum of the crowd in the vineyard back in Roarsville, just for a moment. I continued on, glanced across the street, and was met by the church steeple that's been in the background of my town for forever, not unlike the one in Ingleside. A landmark of sorts, the top rising above just about everything else. I noticed then, too, something I had never paid any mind to. The several law offices lining my beloved home, like the ones in Prince Frederick, gone unnoticed by tourists looking to shop and now by locals just trying to meet up with a friend. Somehow I had never noticed the presence of these businesses that I had nothing to do with but that were a part of my town nonetheless. But for a minute I understood what the towns I discovered on these trips might mean to someone, beyond a law office or a church or a bottle of wine. These towns I went to are people's homes, their histories, and so much more than what I had thought. Chance and a lack of planning led me to find something I didn't know I was looking for, and I did what I had intended. I stopped thinking. I just threw a dart, found the face value of where I went, and carried on. I took these places for what they were and forgot to do what I do best. To think, plan, analyze, so that I can truly understand, or at least try to. I thought I could throw a dart and come home with an understanding of what a place was. And at first I thought that's what I did. I figured I saw everything there was to see, learned everything there was to know, and packed myself up and went back home. But what I really did is stepped into one moment of a story that takes lifetimes to tell. I got one piece, and sure, I can draw conclusions about what I saw, but everywhere has a story. I saw evidence of their narratives, bits of personality scattered throughout whatever I came across. But that's the problem. Expectations are a lens, and as much as I wanted to be immersed in wherever I went, there was still a barrier between me and the places I saw. I found clues about what a place was, and to think those would lead me to understand the entirety of a place was ignorant. But I set out to learn, and that's what I did. I saw outward signs of what I truly believe are fully developed units, glimmers of what I thought I could understand. But I realized that these places weren't so different from my town in that way. In my home, we've got parts of our story we wear on our sleeve, a new clock because a flash flood took out the old one, along with pretty much the rest of the town, leaving us with new crosswalks that say EC Strong and brick sidewalks half covered in asphalt, and new shops replacing the ones that were swept away. But to someone else, maybe it's a beautification project, a historical restoration, or maybe it was just time for a new clock. But there's a story behind everything. I've been able to be a part of my town's story, and I'd be wrong to think that mine is the only home that has a personality and a narrative and a life to it. And I wasn't lucky enough to see all of that while stopping by the places I visited. But I got to hear what they had to tell me, the tidbits and highlights, and maybe, just maybe, I've served to be a tiny bit of the story they have to tell. But I don't know. Let's put a pin in it.